Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today is extra special to me because we have one of my favorite people, Sarah Stanback, on the podcast today. And honestly, guys, I would not be able to do absolutely any of this without her. And I'm so excited for her to just share a piece and part of her story. It includes loss of her dad, grieving loss, what that looks like, what do we do in the midst of grief, and what do we do when our season of life doesn't look like what we had imagined it would always look like. So, without further ado, welcome back to A Light Inside Podcast. Like I said, today is honestly so special for me. I want you guys to know that all this production that you see, like the beautiful reels that are put out on Instagram, and honestly, like any of the content that you see is not by my credibility. It is from Sarah, and she truly has been such a blessing to me. A huge kind of backstory behind this podcast is that I refused to start it until I understood how like the camera and the mics and the lights and everything worked. And so that honestly kept me paralyzed for like 3 years. Sarah was my admissions counselor getting me into Evangel, and I talked to her like all the time. And I called her all the time. And little did we know that she was going to be part of the story that God was making in me. And yeah, so honestly, guys, like give her some love. Look at her photography account on Instagram.
Yeah.
Please stand back photography.
Yep.
She is incredible, and she does all sorts of weddings, graduation pics, couple shoots, solo pics, friend pics. Seriously, she's so talented.
No feet pics.
No feet pics. We were just talking about how we don't think feet are that gross. Well, I don't think that.
Anyway,
Moving on. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you to listen today if you want to be encouraged, if you want to hear a real story, and we're going to get into it. So Sarah, would you like to open us up?
yeah, so I have a funny question for you. Would you rather, like, accidentally lose your pants or accidentally lose your shirt
Oh gosh.
in public?
That's a terrible, terrible question. Honestly, as a female, I would probably say my pants, because then I'm just like wearing like, I don't know, like a swimsuit around.
Like, that's the equivalent?
Yeah, like that's the equivalent. What would you say?
TMI, I guess it depends what bra I'm wearing. If I'm wearing sports bra, I don't care.
That's
I'd
actually
rather
true.
have pants on.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fair. And I guess if you're a guy, you're probably thinking
They'd probably lose
they
their
really
shirt.
or easily.
Yeah.
You have the luxury of that.
Yeah.
So
Anywho.
obviously. Anyway, so I told Sarah to open us up with a funny question because one thing about her is she loves laughing. She laughs at me a lot, not usually with me, but I appreciate it. She's extremely real, and she is honestly one of the most real people I think I've ever met. She does not fear being blunt or honest,
That's true.
which we need, which we deeply need. Yeah, so I know that today I had introduced that we're talking about like loss and grief, and I know that there's a lot of you that maybe the loss in your life right now hasn't looked like an actual like person in your life that you've lost, but there's so many things that we can lose, and there's like a grieving process that comes in that, like whether it's like a dream or I don't know, a friendship that we like don't have anymore. And so yeah, Sarah, would you just want to tell us a little bit about your story and kind of like what loss has looked like in your own life?
Yeah. How much do you want me to like where should I start from? Just the beginning?
Yeah. The beginning. Go ahead.
In 1999, I was born. No. So I grew up in a Christian household. So like I've always known God and all that. My brothers, all that too.
Yeah.
I grew up in a big household. So I have, now I have 9 siblings. But growing up, there was just kind of just like 4 or 5 of us running around, but there was 8 altogether. It's a whole yours, mine, and ours situation. If you haven't seen that movie, go watch it. It's pretty old. But We also grew up in a military family, and so my dad was in the Army, so we were moving every, like, 2 years. We were being restationed, which, for me as a kid, now that I'm looking back on it, was maybe, not as stable as I was thinking as a child.
Right.
But as a kid, I was just like, oh, I'm going to go meet new friends wherever I go next. I was always the new kid. I was, like, just used to it at that point.
Right.
And so I think my childhood was pretty good. Like, I had a good childhood, was always doing stuff, going out. And I don't think my testimony really started until high school. So, like, whenever I talk about my testimony, I don't tell people really much about my childhood because I was just vibing.
Right.
So, anyway, high school's really when it all started. But that was just to lay a little bit of background that I grew up, like, in an all-boy family.
Big family.
We were all just, like, rub some dirt on it type people.
Yep.
Anyway, I get into high school, and we moved to Bolivar, Missouri. So, little small country town. Not as much anymore. It's kind of growing. But we moved there, and we get involved heavily in our church. And so it was, like, the first youth group that me and my younger brother, he's just a year younger than me, and so we were, like, in the same realm of, like, friends and groups all the time. Yeah. But freshman year of high school is when I started really getting involved in church, because ever since, like, before then, we were always just like, oh, we might go to church Sunday, we might not, like, definitely wishy-washy on church attendance. But when high school started, we were like, oh, we're going to do it. It's going to be, like, our thing. We're going to be the church kids. And so we got heavily involved in our youth group, which is honestly where I was kind of introduced a lot to, like, the Holy Spirit. I'd never been in an Assemblies of God church before, which I'm sure we have talked about the Holy Spirit a couple times in this, which you'll also have another podcast talking about the Holy Spirit. But anyway, so that's where I was introduced to that. That's where I met my mentor, Krista. She's amazing. Met some of my best friends, my college roommate, Kaylee, like, lifelong friends that I met there at youth group. And basically, since I was introduced to all that, introduced to camp, all the conventions, fine arts, stuff like that.
Right.
I was just, like, super on a Jesus high, like, all the time. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what living for the Lord is like. And, I was 14, 15, 16, just living it up, going to high school, doing all the things.
Hanging out with friends.
I was a huge soccer player, big into that, played club ball, all that kind of stuff, which is really irrelevant now to my life. But
it was such a big part of the time.
It was a huge part of my life. Anyway, and then junior year of high school is when my life just, like, completely changed. So we obviously have introduced, like, the loss of my dad. And that happened halfway through my junior year of high school. So, like, December-ish, right before Christmas break, it happened. And I remember, well, I don't remember a lot. People who have experienced loss, you might understand, like, a lot of your time frame just, like, disappears. You, like, remember certain things and then completely don't. Right. So, like, the first couple weeks of my dad passing away, I remember almost everything. And then that rest of junior year, I have no idea.
Just, like, blacked out.
I'm just like, I don't know what I did.
Yeah, right.
I went to church, I know that. I played soccer. But, like, other than that, I don't really comprehend. I'm like, I know we moved houses.
Right.
But that's about it. But I remember just that time, like, when all that was happening, and I was, obviously my whole life had changed at that point. I was verbally committed to come to Evangel. Obviously, I work here now, so, like, it's just kind of funny how much I'm around Evangel.
Yeah, all her ties go back to Evangel.
They do. Evangel's great. I do love Evangel. But, anyway, so all these, like, life-changing things were happening, and, this is not a huge life-changing thing, but, like, prom was happening, like, college decisions were happening, my soccer season. Yeah, I had a fantastic season that year, all this stuff that I was like, oh, like, my dad is not here to see it. And so, really, once I found out that my dad passed away, my mom walked in my room, and she was just like, hey, something really bad happened. And I was, like, already grabbing my pillow and blanket, because I thought she was telling me there's a tornado coming. Because that's how it was, like, growing up. And I was just like, okay, like, another tornado.
Midwest. Right.
Out in Missouri in Tornado Alley. But so then she's like, your dad passed away, and people are going to be here in a few minutes. And I was like, okay. And, like, literally I didn't know what to say to my mom, because I was talking about this yesterday. Like, me and my mom are close, but I'm not, like, emotional with a lot of people.
With her. Yeah.
And so I was just like, I remember saying, Mom, I'm so sorry. And because she had just lost her husband. And I was like, I don't know what else to say. And so she went, and I think, like, my aunt was at the house, her sister. And so she, like, went and talked to her. And I just remember sitting in my bed, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so this might sound cliche. I was like, what would Krista do, who's my mentor that I mentioned earlier? And so then I got my Bible and read out of James, because she had told me, like, if you don't know where to go, like, go to James. And so I just started reading through James and then read it again and again, because I was like, I don't know what to do. And then Krista walks in, and obviously I'm talking about it way more casual now, but I was totally like a zombie then.
Yeah.
So, and then I remember my other best friends, I have two really great best friends, Kaylee and Malia. And I remember texting Malia, guys, don't do it ever this way. If you ever have somebody pass away, I don't recommend doing this.
Do not send an ominous text.
I did. I texted her in the middle of the night, because I found out at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And we had school the next day.
Okay.
And so I texted Malia, I said, my dad died. And that was it. And I feel so bad, because I'm just like, wow.
Waking up to that text from your best friend.
I know. I can't imagine being on the other end of that. And, like, me, I wasn't thinking. I was just like, I needed people to know. So in that same day, I texted my best friend. Actually, this is within the same hour of finding out. Texted my best friend saying my dad died. Broke up with my boyfriend, who I'd been dating for like 2 years. And I was just like, you know what? I hate
This
life.
is all too much for me.
So I really was just like exiting everybody out,
Right.
I guess.
Right.
And, well, that's a whole nother story about the boyfriend thing. But, anyway, and so then Krista comes in, and we were just talking, and I'm just, like, I don't know what to say, because in my brain, I feel like I have to make small talk, because I feel like I switched to, like, oh, they're at my house hanging out, instead of, like, oh, I'm grieving, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Right.
Actually, I don't even think I was grieving yet. That was still shocked.
Just, like, hasn't hit you. Yeah.
And so then my younger brother, Aaron, he comes in. So I was 16, he was 15. He comes in my room, and he and I were definitely, like, punch each other type relationship.
Right.
Like, we would hang out, we would jam, but we weren't emotional either. And so then he comes in my room, and he just, like, sits in my room for hours. Like, Krista had already left at this point, and so he was just sitting there for hours. And then, so we found out, like, 1 a.m., and school started at, like, 8 or something, and we had stayed awake that whole time. And so it was maybe, like, 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, wow. So do you want to go to school? And he was like, sure. So we literally went to school.
The next day.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So insane. I don't recommend that either.
No.
But, man, I don't know. That's kind of just the main gist of all of that, and, like, finding out and how he passed away. My dad passed away in a car accident, which is, I think that happens a lot, more often than people think. And he was, like, heading home from work, but it was caused by a drunk driver, which this goes into a whole different rant that I have. But the guy who caused it, his trial is actually still going on.
Wow.
Which is obnoxious.
That's insane.
Anywho, by the time this airs, it might have happened.
That's wild.
We'll see.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's been 10 years.
Wow.
So that just talks
The
about
heck.
our government system.
A little messed up sometimes.
Anyway.
I can say. And there definitely is, I think, so many stages of grief that, you know, and that's, like, psychologically proven, too. And, like, I think that initial, like, shock, it's, like, you almost can't cry or, like, you can't really process because you just don't know what to do. And especially, like, at the age that you were, too, of, like, your brain is still, like, developing. Like, our brains aren't even fully, like, formed until, like, the age. I think for women, it's, like, 20...
I think it's, like, 25.
25.
So I have a fully developed brain.
Right. Not me. But in that time when you're, like, still walking through so much in your own life and, like, your adolescence life, like, I'd consider that. When do you feel like the season kind of shift from, like, being so shocked to, like, you actually entered, like, the feeling aspect of that? And, like, who did you go to? Who did you run to?
I think the feeling from going from shock to, like, actually grieving, a lot happened right after his burial. And so that was, I don't know, like, a week later, maybe 5 days. I don't know.
Right.
But, because I remember all the time from finding out to then the burial, I was just, like, a rock. I was just like, I'm not gonna.
So it happened.
Like, because my mom was obviously so emotional. Like, rightfully so. And my brothers were also super emotional, which I didn't really know how to handle. So I was like, I just don't want to, like, be emotional with people. Yeah. And so then we also had, like, the visitation, and it was, like, an open casket visitation, which that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
one,
Wow.
seeing like your parent not alive there is crazy. But I remember my friend Malia, who I texted, she was there. She was honestly with me like the whole time. Like
Yeah.
she was a huge help as to why I think I didn't go insane. She would come. She spent the night at my house, I think, every night for the next like 2 weeks, just like staying there with me.
Yeah.
But funny story. I don't know if she's ever gonna watch this. But I'm gonna share it about her anyway. This just goes to show her dedication as a friend. We were at the visitation at funeral home, and the family has to like sit in the front, and everybody comes around, sees the casket, and then comes and says their like, you know, condolences or whatever.
Right.
Which I think is annoying. I have hot takes on a lot of things that I think are just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Malia was there, but she was sick, and so she had walked in with like a puke bucket. And
oh, wow.
I remember her walking out because she had to go throw up, but like she stayed because she didn't want to leave, and I was like, man,
that is precious.
what a friend. Which now that I look
Commitment.
back on, I'm like, okay, like she really is such a great friend. But
Yeah.
at the time, I was just like, oh my gosh, are you sick? You should leave.
Like, why are you here?
Yeah, because for me and like my family, we were just sitting there for, I don't know, 2 hours, just waiting for people to come in, and that's a lot. That's a lot of like emotional heaviness of just like having. Because when people are coming and saying their condolences to you, to me anyway, it felt like I had to then say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like you lost this guy too."
Right.
I don't know. It was like
Or
weird.
like, it's okay. It'll be all right.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Yep. Yep.
Or how are you doing? I'm not just gonna answer that anymore. But
yeah.
man, because like then, I mean, it's hard on people on like the other end too of like,
Yeah.
what can I say to them?
Yep.
But because probably don't ever ask, how are you doing? The answer will always be bad.
Right.
Like, don't ask that. That is the one thing you do not ask a grieving
Yep.
person.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
what was the question?
Yeah. Well, just like, who did you turn to?
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
who was the comfort in all of
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I kind of answer that. Malia was a
Melina, yeah.
huge comfort for me. And so was Krista as well. Krista was there for wisdom and to be able to like kind of guide me through spiritually of
Yeah.
what does this look like and how can God use it. That's also one thing I forgot to mention. Like, whenever I found out, I was in my room, pulled out my Bible. I remember I was just like, okay, God's going to use this some way. I don't know how yet, and I know it's going to, like, hurt, and it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But I know that God will use it. And so I kept having that faith of, like, I know God will use it, I know God will use it, and it'll be fine at some point.
Yeah.
But, so Krista was there to help me a lot during that time. And then Malia just was great. But then there was also times, I'm going to shout out to my car. So my car was the best place.
It's a good
for me to
therapy
go
zone,
to.
not
there
gonna
were
lie.
times, which I don't think many people know, but there were times when I just like drove out to the high school because where we were at, like, nobody's at the high school ever, like at night.
Right.
Like you can just, I don't know if that's
The parking lot
there
just
was
open.
yeah, parking lot's open, and nobody cares. Like there's no security. Our town's pretty safe. So, I would drive out there and I would just scream like the whole way
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I have so much pent up anger, frustration, hurt,
Yeah.
loneliness, whatever. So I was just like, maybe if I just scream. Also, screaming would then make me cry, and I have a hard time crying just in general.
Yep. Yep.
But I do think in my growing of age, I think I've become a little bit more emotional towards things. But yeah, so just like letting out all of like the air that I had would make it so much easier to cry, and I felt like crying was healing
Yeah.
in a way.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It is interesting because I'm like a very highly emotional person and I've always hated that about myself. Like I've always hated the fact that I could cry at pretty much anything. Like I literally was almost crying as you're talking and just like, man, I hate that. But there is like something really beautiful about crying, and like chemically when we cry, it releases toxins from our body. Like it actually is part of like the body's internal like regulation system of like calming ourselves down. And so, yeah, I think there's like kind of a weird view on crying. Like I think,
I also love crying myself to sleep.
oh my,
Not to say no, that does
But
not
it does
happen
calm
often.
you. It
That does
does
not
calm
happen
you.
often, but it just makes it so much easier to fall asleep.
Yeah.
You're just like, man, I'm so exhausted. Go to
it
bed.
sucks the life out of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you're like, oh, it's like a fresh day and like
Yeah.
a fresh start.
Yeah.
After you just cried.
Anyway, that doesn't happen often.
She's not referring to that, but
Yeah.
anyway.
During that time, it did happen
It did.
often.
Right. And I just, the aspect of like Jesus weeping and like him being like a man of sorrows, like acquainted with grief. Do you think, like what was your view of God in that time?
I think I had a blanket faith in a way of like, honestly, kind of like in the way of I was using faith as a blanket. And so
Right.
I kept telling myself, you know, God is going to use it. God's doing something. I believe in that God can heal me, all this kind of stuff. But then it would flip and I'd be like, why am I putting this? Like, the why was always there. And then I remember reading something one time and it said, the why in anything, whether that is a loss or, you know, an injury or maybe something's not happening, anything like that, the why is to glorify God. Like, you can't ask why because the answer is to glorify God.
Wow.
So that was hard for me to like take too because I was like, well, I can't keep asking why, so then what do I ask? So then
Right.
I was asking what is going to come out of it. So instead of like saying why because I felt like why I was blaming God,
Yeah.
I was saying what because that was more so like,
I believe you will do
Yeah.
something.
exactly.
But what is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that point, I think that is as much faith as I had, which was the why and the what.
Right.
Other than that, I wasn't really praying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was praying to like have my situation change.
Yeah.
But I really was kind of turning more towards things that I thought would fill the hole in my heart,
Right.
which did not, and it was really bad. So it's just, I felt something missing, which was
Yeah.
clearly my dad. And then, because I think I grew up more as like a daddy's girl, and me and my dad had an interesting relationship where,
Yeah.
like, if you know me at all, you know I'm pretty sassy. And so my dad was also extremely sarcastic, and so he and I would get in like
Banters.
banters all the time. We would headbutt not like actually headbutt, but like we would
Yeah.
just butt heads all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side too, he was very passionate about the stuff I was passionate in. He didn't know anything about soccer, but he was yelling at me from the sidelines. So
Wow.
it's just like, and then I also play the drums. That's just a thing about me. But I play the drums because he played the drums. So like growing up, I always saw him on stage on a worship team somewhere, and so I was like, I want to learn how to do that, and I just
Cool.
have rhythm. So I was just like, I'm gonna do it.
Totally.
But then, like, whenever we got to Bolivar and got involved in church, he got to see me lead on worship there, and then I got to like see him and my mom start worshiping in the audience. So like
Wow.
it was such a like interesting display of just their growing in faith, and then also me just like utilizing the gifts that I had.
Yeah.
But so just stuff like that where I grew up just kind of close to my dad, but again, we weren't super emotional people, so it's not like we were ever
Right.
going to say that. But so just whenever he died, I had just a massive hole in my heart, and I was like, what can fill that? And so, you know, that boyfriend I broke up with, I thought was the guy that was going to be filling that, which ended up leading to a situationship for like 7 years.
Ugh.
So don't go to
relationships
at all. If you're grieving, don't go to relationships.
Yeah.
It won't help you. It's just going to make you regret a lot more things.
So true.
So in the sense of what did I turn to, it was not God. I
Yeah.
kept telling people it was, but it was not.
Yeah.
I mean, like partially, I'd say like a third of it was turning to God. Other than that, it was this guy that I was just like, oh, he'll help me heal, and he did not. And then actually it was church, and so like getting super involved in church because I was like, I don't want to be somewhere that's going to make me worse, and
Right.
church won't make me worse.
Right.
And
So I'm
so-
gonna get hyper involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
And so sometimes I think I might have looked at church as more as the healing thing than God himself.
Wow.
But I don't think that was necessarily wrong
No.
in my sense because I was surrounded by people that kept pouring into me.
And that loved you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. I think just figuring out like what we initially turn to is not always the Lord. Like I know for
Yeah.
me it's not. And like was there ever a moment where you feel like you hit rock bottom and you were like, God, you are like the only thing left for me to turn to? Like do you ever feel like you got to a point where you had to choose God, or do you feel like that process just happened over time?
I think in college. So my dad passed away junior year. So junior year, senior year, freshman year of college, which is kind of like a blank to me.
Yeah.
Sophomore year of college is when I met a lot of my really close friends and got really involved like with the soccer team here, all that kind of stuff. But I also, I think, was getting way too heavily involved that then all of my emotions were kind of just pushed to the back burner until like 3 a.m. And then I would start feeling all these things. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, am I depressed? Is this anxiety? I don't know.
Right.
I don't think I've ever actually had anxiety because I just kind of, if it doesn't work out, I'm just like, okay, well, whatever. But depression, I definitely have dipped my toe in. And so it's just like sophomore year, I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I was in my dorm room and I had 2 girls that came into my room. One is one of my really close friends now. She unfortunately doesn't live here, but she was like, hey, I'm just concerned about you. And so she brought in another girl who was kind of like more a mentor to like a lot of the girls on the soccer team. Yeah. And they just like came in and I just kind of opened up about, I had never really talked to these girls about like anything heavy before. And I think it was kind of nice like to talk to somebody who didn't know anything. Right. And they were just like, well, let me give you like insight.
Kind of like a blank
from
slate.
Not knowing anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then they actually prayed for me in my dorm room. A lot of people are just like, I'm praying for you. And I'm just like, thanks. But nobody's like, well, I can't say nobody. Few people actually
done it.
Actually were like, okay, well, let's pray. And I was caught off guard because I was like, oh, you mean like right now?
Oh, this second.
And it was just weird to me because like a lot of the prayer that I had encountered was at the altar, like people were laying hands on you, all that kind of stuff. Not like in silence in your dorm room, like with just you 3 in a circle. And I was like, okay. And so they prayed over me. And after that, I still struggled with many things. And I remember my roommate at the time, she had told me, she was like, what you're doing is not just like hurting you, but like you're hurting my best friend. And it like hit me differently that I was like, oh, like it's not really just me involved. It is hurting you as well.
The people around me. Yeah.
And so that I think is more so when I started like switching it. And this is not also to sound cliche, but when I met Rylan, who's now my husband, it just made my life, I think, switch. Because I had dated people before, but when I met him, I was like, I want to do things differently because like the next guy I date, I'm going to marry, which happened to be him. So then I was like, I need to get better mentally. I need to be better physically. All this kind of stuff. And then he just helped because he was just a breath of fresh air and it was nice. But
and we were literally just talking about Rylan the other day. And I was like, from the interactions I've had with him, he is a very like just like stabilizing guy. Like he just stabilizes things. And so I think what a beautiful thing that the Lord knew.
He's definitely very calm compared to my crazy. So,
which we all need crazy ones like me. But yeah, honestly, I think that this would make an amazing part 2. So we are going to pause here for now, and next week come for the second part of this, kind of just talking about like more of like the practicals of like what it looks like to grieve, and then kind of touching on the part 2 of like grieving the season that you're in, and looking at that. So we will be back next week. Sarah, any concluding thoughts?
Neapolitan ice cream is looked down on, and it's actually pretty good because you get 3 in 1. Kind of like God.
Oh, bomb dropped.